Guess what, people? It's not same shit, different day. What the heck are we talking about? Today, we're going to jump right on in and I'm going to help you figure out what it looks like to work inside of your business and on your business. Here's the real talk. As business owners, all of us obviously work inside our business. I'll explain what that means in just a second. But also, all of us should be working on our business. And I think this is something a lot of business owners get wrong. So we're going to come up with a game plan of how to adjust that and tackle that within your own business. First things first, we have to talk about what it looks like working inside of your business. Inside is the money-making stuff. If you're service-based, that's client work, that's meetings. When I had a hair salon, that was me doing hair. I'm working in my business when I'm seeing my clients and I'm doing hair. Now, as a business coach, I'm working in my business when I'm having client calls and meeting with my clients, when I'm teaching workshops, when I am hosting team trainings. That is working inside my business. So inside your business stuff is how you make your money. Out of that is on your business. On your business is making things better, more efficient. It's planning, it's strategy, it's all the pieces that don't touch the money directly, but when worked on, help you grow and scale and get clear of where your long-term trajectory is and how to get there. Guess what? If you're a business owner and you have team members, whether they're a 1099 or a W-2, doesn't matter. That changes the tasks that you tackle in your business. When you're working in your business and you have a team, that's going to be team meetings, team trainings, that's going to be delegating, that's going to be check-ins. Working on your business still applies. You still need to come up with a game plan of where you're headed. What are you doing? What's the plan 5 months from now? Where is the team going for the next year? Where should everyone focus on? So the in versus on thing never goes away as you grow. Whether you're solo or you got 100 employees, all of us have activities where we work inside our business and we have activities where we're working on our business. And what I see a lot of people get wrong is they don't know how to do it well and they either do too much or too little. So we're going to talk about how to find the right ratio for you. There's 3 main things I think can help you clear up what to tackle and whether it's an inside job or on the business job. And the first thing is this: you have to get really clear on where you're headed and why. So that looks like understanding your why, defining your values. It looks like setting long-term goals. I have all my clients do this thing where they write out 5 years from now, this is my goal. This is what life looks like. This is the car I drive. This is what a day in the life looks like. Here's my schedule. Here's how much I pay myself. Here's how much my business makes. Like, we map that out pretty clearly 5 years out. Then I have them do it 1 year out and then 6 months out. And by starting further out and working backwards, it allows us to dream a little bit because I think a lot of us get in our own way. The truth is we don't know what to tackle, whether it's working inside the business or working on the business. We don't know what to tackle if we don't know where we're headed. So everything starts with knowing where we're going and why. And I think not enough people do this. And so what happens is we start tackling things and all of a sudden now we're launching a podcast and now we're launching an affiliate program and now we have swag and now we're selling t-shirts and now we have this guest show thing that we're doing and now we're on TikTok, and all of a sudden time goes by. We're tackling all these different things, but we're getting nowhere. It's as if we're just sprinting, but on a hamster wheel. And it's because we didn't pause to figure out, where's the finish line? What does that look like? How do I know once I got there? What does that feel like once I've accomplished that? And also it helps keep you focused because distractions will come up. I might say something that distracts you today. You might read a book that says, hey, you really need to get on Pinterest, and you might go do that. But by knowing where you're going and why, it'll help you create strong boundaries and parameters to follow to keep you focused on the bigger picture. And I think that is just so important in many aspects of business, but especially when it comes to this in the business activity stuff and on the business activity stuff. The second thing is this: once you are clear on where you're headed, why, your long-term goals, number 2, you have to identify what's holding you back. And this actually, to me, in my vantage point, Kelsey as a business coach, here's what I see. I see one of 2 camps. One camp is this: times get tough, money is tight, things are inconsistent, maybe you're newer to business. Those are the people who I see hiding out inside the business. So they're cutting hair 6-7 days a week. They are taking photos any and all days, any client all the time, because they need the money. They need to at least get something going. There is a time and place, in my opinion, to hustle. I think all of us are there. We have moments where it's like, yeah, I just got to hit the gas a little bit harder right now. And I'm just in it right now. And that's just the season I am in. I think that totally happens. However, if you're never taking a step out of the business activity, again, the money making stuff, if you're not strategizing the big picture, if you're not lifting your head up for air and deciding and defining where you're headed and why, you're just going to let business happen to you. I picture it's like a hamster wheel. This is a weird visual that's coming up, but here we go. It's like a hamster wheel, but like the part that keeps it stable falls off. So you're sprinting inside this hamster wheel and it's just rolling down a hill as you're in it, but you're not in any control of where it's headed. You're moving, so you're making progress, but you don't know where it's headed. And that's what I picture with these people who are stuck inside the business. They don't have the sense of direction. If you have team members and you're hiding in your business, you're really going to struggle. And here's what that looks like. If you are a business owner with team members and you keep falling inside the business, whether you're going back in the treatment room, you're taking clients, you're making products, you're doing that money-making stuff, you're intercepting the ball that your team members need to have possession of, you're stunting their growth. They're eventually going to get fed up and your business doesn't know where it's going. If you don't even know where you're going, how can your team members know? And if your team members don't know where they're going, how do they know how to execute? So I encourage you, truly think about where you're headed and why, identify those weak spots. And if you fall under the camp of people who fall in the business, check yourself and say, wow, when's the last time I carved a little bit of time to come up with a strategy? When's the last time I paused and worked on some systems? And if the answer is never, I want you to start today. I want you to take a moment today, look at your schedule, block off a couple hours. Don't take client calls. Don't respond to Instagram DMs. Don't look at the email. Focus on the business. And again, if you have team members, they need attention too. They become your new client. I'm gonna say that again. If you have team members and they are doing client facing work, maybe you're in the spa industry, maybe you're in the hair industry, maybe you're a photographer and you have a junior photographer working under you. If you have team members, when you are working in the business, you are now working on your team. You are helping grow them. You are helping lead them. And leading doesn't look like, hey, can you do XYZ? They do it wrong. And you go, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'll just do it next time. That's not being an effective leader. I call it leadership hot potato. We don't want that. So if you're the person who gets stuck inside the business, I want you to pause, acknowledge it, because we all know if we're in that camp. Acknowledge that you have not spent any time working on the business, the big picture, the strategy, the systems. Carve out some time right now. Grab your phone. Pause this episode and mark out some time on the calendar to work on the business. I'm going to share at the end what my ratio is this current chapter of business that I am in. I'll share all the details of how I have mine set up. But for now, carve out some time. There's a second camp. I mentioned this when we're talking about identifying those weak spots or things that are holding us back from working on the business effectively. There's also people who work on their business too much. And this sucks. I've been in both. I've seen baby entrepreneurs, new business owners fall into both camps. So I don't think it happens at one specific chapter. I think it's just our human tendencies and potentially what industry you're in. But people who work on their business too much, here's how you know you're in that camp. Your sales are not consistent. You have months of feast and months of famine. You launch something and sometimes nobody buys it. So then you change everything. You find a new app to support it. You pay for that app. And then you launch a new thing on a new platform. And then again, no one buys it. And then you change everything. You launch a new offer. You find a new app or platform and rinse and repeat. If things don't work out, if you're launching something specifically and it doesn't work out, if it's the first time you've ever done it and you don't keep it around, how do you know what works and what didn't? Maybe it was your messaging. Maybe it was the people you were trying to sell it to. Maybe it was the amount of times you talked about it. Maybe you didn't talk about it enough. There's so many factors involved. And when we think of working on our business, to me, the sales conversation, that's in the business stuff, but everything else supporting it is on. If we think the problem is always the on the business stuff, it's I didn't have a good plan. I didn't have the systems. I didn't have the right strategy or content or whatever on the business stuff. And we are never addressing the sales piece, which to me is really close to the money-making piece. We're never going to be able to solve that problem. So if you're constantly changing all the variables, you don't have data to lean on to make decisions for your business, to make things better for your business. So if you're working on your business too much, you're spending all day, every day vision boarding, manifesting, morning routines, setting the vibe, meditating. I already said that. Cold plunges. It's all of that with the proof that your sales are not where they need to be. If you're doing all of that stuff and you are killing it, you're hitting your goals, if you're service-based, maybe you're at capacity or flirting with capacity, fine. That works for you. Great. But I see so many people giving bad advice of like, You just need to have a 10-step skincare routine every single morning, and then all of a sudden everything will just come to you and happen. And I think a lot of people chase that when they don't seem to understand that for some people, it's actually a sales issue. Because I'm going to be real with you. Right now, my business is currently, I have surpassed salon Kelsey income last year for the year. Month by month, there's been months where I definitely have already, but as a full business this last fiscal year, I have surpassed my salon income, which was a goal that I've had for a while, and I'm thrilled about it. But guess what? My morning routine is shorter than it's ever been. Part of that is I'm in a season where I just have a lot to get done. Truthfully, I do. If you see all the things I'm involved with, you wouldn't be surprised. There are things I've said yes to. There are things that I'm excited about. I don't regret it. This is not about that. But the reality of my life right now, I don't have a lot of time to not be very laser focused on my work. So when I'm working, I'm on and I'm efficient because I have to be. And honestly, I get more done and I'm more intentional and it's more effective for me. So there's seasons where I had a whole hour-long morning routine. Wake up, make a coffee, film it, do the journaling, post about my day on Instagram stories. Here's all the things I'm doing today. Then listening to a podcast, then journaling about it, then setting some intentions, then thinking about it, and then start my day. I can't say for certain whether that worked better or it didn't work, but I can tell you right now, the realities of my life, I'm not prioritizing all of that stuff. It's not to say I'm putting myself last. I have other things I do for self-care. I'm in action-taking mode, and I need to make sure I'm taking the right action. And that's what I want to say to you. If you're someone who obsessively works on your business, the vision boards, the strategy, the offers, refining that always without launching or selling a thing, I challenge you to really think about when's the last time you went and reached people and asked them to buy your stuff, buy your product, hire you for the thing. It really can be that easy. And I think we just forget that. So I encourage you, if you're listening to this and you fall into the camp of people, who works on your business a lot, where can we start to work in the business more? And if we don't have enough clients to work in the business, what steps can we take to get more clients? I think at the end of the day, that's the gap that is the missing link of this. So the third tip, I mentioned 3 tips that can help you get clear how to work inside and outside and on your business. The third step looks like this. You only add things to the plate that help you get from A to B. So when you're clear on the goals, the mission, the vision, the values, where you're headed, why you're going that way, what does success look like? What does it feel like? What's a day? All of that stuff. When you're clear on all of that and you're clear about today what is stopping you from becoming that person, you should only be taking steps to get you closer to that goal. So if you're somebody who spends a lot of time working on your business, adding more time to work on your business, and again, the caveat is sales are not where they need to be. They're not consistent, all that stuff. If those indicators are all present, more on the business time is not going to solve the problem for you. And same thing on the other side. If you are stuck working inside your business, adding another half day to the schedule isn't going to get you big picture to where you want to go. And the truth is, all of us need to do both. We need to work inside and we need to work on the business. We just got to get clear about it and we have to have a process in place. So I'm going to give you the example of what I do in my schedule that I find to be really helpful. Again, I am not perfect. This is just current Kelsey, where I'm at today. This is what works for me. First things first, working inside my business as a coach right now is having calls and meetings with my clients and or their teams. I also do some audits if they tag me and stuff. I also check in with them via Voxer. That's also working on my business, which also takes time. So this is how I set up my schedule. Every single month, I block off the first of the month. If the first of the month falls on a weekend, I block off the next first Monday. Block off, no meetings. What do I do that day? I audit. I look at what works and what doesn't. I look at my financials. I look at what % of my money went to costs. I look at what % went to my team members. I look at how many downloads did I have on the podcast. I recently spoke at an event and I talked about the podcast. The example I gave was there's seasons where I would track metrics in there and there's seasons where I wasn't. But because I'm currently in a season where I'm trying to get this show, this episode, this podcast in front of more people because I want to help more people, I care about it. So I need to know, Are you liking this episode? Are you liking episodes like last week where it was more a conversation with my husband? Or are you liking the one a couple of weeks ago where Brian came on and talked about opening multiple locations, scaling a business, failures? Like, I need to know the vibe. I need to know what's working. Therefore, I track a list of metrics in my business, both financial and otherwise, depending on my current goals. That's why that piece is so important. Depending on where I'm headed in business, also very important. And I spend a whole day working on the business. What worked last month? What am I doing this next month? I come up with, what are my podcast topics going to be? Every year I map out in general, here's what I'm launching in this month. Here's what I'm emphasizing in this month. I have a specific type of person I'm talking to. Even with this podcast episode, I have a specific person I'm talking to right now. So knowing all of that, having that one day a month, it's my month-end audit. I actually look forward to it, and it helps me have that intentional time to work on the business. And also, here's the thing. It's a lot easier to tackle that day when I know ahead of time what things go on that plate. And I think that's where people make the mistake. They block off the time, then it feels like a quote unquote waste, or a client call comes up, or a discovery call happens, or what have you. And then all of a sudden, day disappears. Either you schedule meetings on it, or you fill it up with other things, or you go to the spa, or whatever that looks like. But for me, my month-end audit, it's a standing thing. I block it off for the entire year. I do it in January for the whole year, and I really look forward to it. Here's the other thing I do with my schedule when we talk about working in versus on. I, every Monday, also work on my business, but for the week. That's when I am checking in with my team to make sure they have everything that they need. That is when I'm checking my emails. That's when I am coming up with content plans if anything needs to change for the week. That's where I'm following up on the DMs. That's where I'm deciding what my conversation is going to be in my next Facebook group live, which I do every Wednesday at 9. So anything on the business happens on that Monday. Here's the deal. This week didn't happen. I was on vacation. Viva la Mexico. I was in Mexico till very late Monday, which means my 5-day work week went down to 4 days. So what happens then? That on the business time that I have carved out every week has to be absorbed somewhere else. Guess what? Today is Wednesday. Wednesdays are the days I focus on my podcast. Today is the day where I had some things that I had to do to work on my business. Specifically, I'm working on some systems with onboarding. Me and my team member are working on this together to make sure that it's really streamlined, efficient, serves the clients well. So we spent time working on that today. Typically, that wouldn't happen in a normal week, but that's the realities of this week for me, and being okay with that, being flexible. But it's a lot easier to switch that hat of in versus on for me when I have that clarity of what that task needs to be. That makes sense. I hope you're listening and you're like nodding along, like, okay, this is clearing up the air. The other thing I do is this. I have 2 days a week where I only work in my business, and those are Tuesdays and Thursdays. What does that look like? It looks like client calls. It looks like Voxer check-ins with my team members. Or my clients. It looks like giving feedback on their Google documents, reading over their questionnaires or any homework that they submitted. It looks like running my networking group in Power P&W. Anything inside my business happens Tuesdays and Thursdays. And that means some Tuesdays and Thursdays, I don't check my email. Some Tuesdays and Thursdays, I don't respond to Instagram DMs because that is not my number one priority on those days. Some Tuesdays and Thursdays, I don't even look at LinkedIn. And to really get to a place where you're cool with that, it's maybe taking some of those apps off your phone. Maybe it's turning off the notifications. I don't know how you people do it with an Apple Watch, but the phone is distracting enough for me. So for me, I don't even have email notifications on my phone. I can click on my email and see my emails, but I don't have that number, because that number stresses me out on there and I can't do it. And there's days, Tuesdays and Thursdays, where I may not have time to work on my business, and that is okay. The world doesn't end. I'm a better business owner when I can separate my brain and my process out that way. So when you're listening to this ratio might not make sense to you, but this is what works for me. Then Wednesdays are podcast days, like I mentioned. I usually hammer out a couple episodes. If I'm not actively recording podcast episodes, I'm typically planning, strategizing for the next one. If you didn't know this, I actually host 2 shows. So I have my podcast and I also host the Kooks First podcast. So there's a lot of podcast stuff that happens. I like doing that all on Wednesdays. Fridays are the days that are a little bit of catch up. Very, very rarely, but sometimes I have client meetings on Fridays. That's also when I have coffee dates. If I want to do a collab with someone, if I want to go to a networking event, if I want to work with someone to see about teaching a workshop, I'm having those types of conversations on Fridays. And some Fridays, maybe I'm blocking off the second half and I'm coming up with my content strategy for the month. But I hope as I'm talking, you can hear how Kelsey, I have a lot on my plate. I have a lot of things I'm involved with, but I'm able to go from in the business to on the business very effectively. And it's because I know where I'm headed and why. And I've built in these specific chunks of time to allow myself to be successful in executing the in versus on tasks. I've built these parameters, these systems that help support me in taking action on the in the business stuff and on the business stuff. So to recap, everyone should be working in their business and on their business. Some people don't do enough and some people do too much. You may not know where you're at. Here's my advice. If you don't know, like Kelsey, I don't know if I really work on my business or not. Take a week and audit yourself. Look at every single task you did and how much time went into it. Put an I next to the things that are in the business. So that's client-facing, money-making activities. Put an O next to everything that's on the business. That's emailing your accountant, checking your email. That's working on setting up an automation in Honeybook or Kajabi or Airtable. That's going in and plugging in how much money you made last month. All that stuff is on. So put O's next to those. That's going to paint the picture of where your time is spent and why. And then I encourage you to adjust accordingly. Maybe you need to spend a little more time working on, or maybe you need to spend less time working on, but you just need to be more clear on what that looks like. On the days when I wake up and I don't have client calls, I know what I need to do and I know the priority of what needs to get done. If you don't have that confidence when you wake up, it's time to adjust your process. So that is what I have for you today. I encourage you to take the time to get clear. This doesn't mean you need to work 24/7. I'm not saying you need to add more to the plate. All I'm saying is everything that stays on the plate needs to be really intentional, specific, and help you move the needle towards your bigger goals. And if you're listening to this episode and you have team members and you're really struggling with this in versus on stuff, I encourage you to really stop and think about your capacity and what you can handle in a normal day. And lean on your team. That's what they're there for too. Have your leadership team do this exercise. How much time are they spending client-facing, doing stuff in the business versus on the business? And help them get clear on that as well. So that's what I have. I hope you join us. We actually have a Facebook community. I know Facebook's not everyone's happy place, but it's the only place that made sense. And we meet every Wednesday. We do a live call, which is really cool. It's on Zoom. We hold each other accountable. I would love to invite you to join us. We have a call coming up in a couple days. Love to have you in there. We can talk about this specific topic. It's a great place for accountability, support, resources, all the things. It's called Get Shit Done, of course. So please join us in there. You can click the link in the show notes if you have a hard time finding us on Facebook. But aside from that, it's not same shit, different day. Every day gets to be unique and different. And I encourage you to set your schedule and yourself up for success. Time to work in and on the business and get clear on what that looks like. So hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you on the next one.